Hey, welcome to another edition of Let's Talk Music Richmond, and I'm here today with a very special person, and Charles is always special, but I'm here with a special person, and I'm gonna let Charles introduce her, but she's still special to me too, so I had to get that in.
Well,
And I'm gonna introduce my partner Charles Mann over there, and let him introduce my friend down there.
All right. Well, this special guest today is extremely special with me as well. We go back such a long ways, but we also have a direct family connection. We go back quite a ways. And
I was a kid.
yes, and so was I.
Yes.
But she used to walk me to school. She used to walk me to school. She used to make me stand in the corner and the traffic light and say, "Don't cross right now, young man." Okay, no, that's not true. Anyway, without further ado, Miss Marsha Meekins, well-accomplished musician and musical trainer in and around Richmond area. And Marsha, we're going to bring you in here, so I want you to tell us a little bit about what you do now and who you are, and then we go back into let's dig up the past.
Okay. Good afternoon. It's so good to be here with two of my dear friends. I love these two guys. And I'm so excited about this project you're working on. So my name is Marsha Meekins Cheatham, but professionally, I'm Marsha Meekins. I'm a flute player. I have my own 5-piece jazz band, Marsha Meekins and Company. And we've been playing in and around the area for about 4 or 5 years since I moved back to Richmond. I moved back here in 2014 after living in Baltimore for 20 plus years.
In Baltimore, you worked as a musical instructor, music teacher in Baltimore system, or you worked as administrator? Exactly. What was your background there in Baltimore?
I worked for the Maryland State Education Association. So basically, I took care of teachers. I did union work. I did teaching through my church. We had a band at church, and that's when that satisfied my yin for teaching. But my work life was advocacy for educators.
Very good, very good. Now, when you went to Armstrong, of course.
I did. Armstrong High School class of 1969.
And when you came out of Armstrong, what was the first band on the scene, in the Richmond scene, that you get involved with? How did that actually grow into the jazz groups and things?
Well,
the one you're most noted for, in my memory, in this time frame that Bill and I are discussing, 1960s, 1970s, 1980, you came around in the 1980s with the jazz group that just took over the scene. And what was that?
The Jazz Ladies. I started that group, and I played with them for a little more than 6 years. But before the Jazz Ladies, I had played with Chapter 2, which was based in Petersburg. And it was several of my friends from Virginia State that pulled me in and got me interested in playing jazz. And so I played with Chapter 2. We played in Petersburg every weekend for about a year. During that time, I started my own first band called Wave, which was based in Richmond. So I was playing with both of those bands. Actually, the same people were in both bands.
Okay, so that's the way to do it.
Yep, Wave played mostly in Richmond, and Chapter 2 played mostly in Petersburg.
Very good, Bill. You were familiar with the Petersburg connection there, Wave.
Well, I knew all the guys, but around the time Marsha got started with that, I was
living somewhere else.
I was pretty much in the Jersey area with Marvin Daniels recording Sugar Hill and Philly International and all that stuff. So by the time I came back, they were already doing the do.
By the mid-80s, I had already left Richmond by the mid-80s and started working in the Louisiana area. So Marsha had the whole town to herself.
But I came to see you down there now. Don't forget that.
Oh, yeah. Well, you did come to see us in the 70s when you were not supposed to be out. You were still a child. But I'm not going to tell anybody that you were sneaking in the clubs. But yeah, you did get the opportunity to see both my group, Ujima, and Bill's group, Trusted. You got an
Oh
opportunity
my
to see
God,
them.
yes. Those were the premier bands. And I remember Anglo-Saxon Brown as well.
Right.
I remember Silk. I remember
Right.
there was one more.
Brother Love.
Brother Love. I remember
Right.
those.
And all of those were the same group. Brother Love,
people.
Ujima, Anglo-Saxon Brown, and Silk.
Yes.
So all of those were the same people as well. So let me ask you this, Marsha. The jazz ladies, who were the original members of that group?
Okay, so the original members, myself on flute and sax. At the time I played tenor, alto, mostly alto, soprano, and flute. There was Pearl White. Pearl played tenor, alto, soprano, and flute. There was Juana Thompson. She did keyboards. There was Dorothy Marie Davis, who was also from Virginia State. She played bass. There was the first bassist we had was Shirley, though. She only did the first gig with us, and then Dorothy started playing with us. On guitar was Jackie Singleton. On drums was Michelle Hammond, who was from Petersburg. When she started playing with us, she was 16. She was still in high school, but she played with us even after she went away to college, off and on. Whenever she was home, she'd still play with us. But a lot of times after Michelle went away to school, we were the Jazz Ladies plus one. And there were a bunch of musicians who made up the plus ones, right? So
the plus one was a rotating position.
Was a rotating position because there were times after Dike got sick, we would have bass players play. Hannon played with us for a long time. And Matt Steele and several other bass players are Charles.
Did Weldon play bass with you and drums?
Weldon played drums with us.
You were teaching in the Richmond School System for a while.
Yes.
When was that in your time frame?
19 years I taught in Richmond from 1975 to 1994 when I left for good. I left the first time in 92 when I moved out to Kansas, and I did field training for my UNICEF director job that I got later. So I lived in Kansas in 92, and then I came back and I taught for another year. And then in 94, I moved to Maryland for good.
For a year or two or whatever,
I was his assistant.
Marsha was my assistant band director at Kennedy.
Yes.
All right.
And I ended up with a lot of my students that I had started.
Yeah, a lot of the kids that she started were in the band. Yeah. But she convinced her that she didn't want to be a marching band director because she was going to say, nah. It was that parade that Marsha and I did determined the fact that I was leaving the band director profession.
Who were the band directors before you guys got there at Kennedy?
At Kennedy,
it was Lloyd Ricks before.
Lloyd Ricks.
Yeah. What about after you guys left?
Well, now, but let's stay with Armstrong now. While I was at Kennedy, I came in. Well, the whole story is that Marsha was my role model. She was my mentor because when I worked in Petersburg as band director at Peabody,
right,
and got riffed. I mean, got laid off.
Yeah.
And so I came. Nelson Lawson called me up and hired me to work at Kennedy. Lloyd Ricks had gotten killed in a car accident earlier that year.
Right.
But Marsha was like the dean. Well, I'll tell you why, Charles. Because Nelson didn't tell me I had to teach elementary band too. He said, Bill, I'm hiring you to come teach at Kennedy High School. All right, so I show up and they go, oh, I forgot. You got two elementary schools too. I'm going like, say what? What'd you say?
I really want this job. Okay.
And Marsha did elementary. But so we all worked in Church Hill together.
Yes.
So she was like the dean of the Church Hill Elementary School band
Every
directors.
school in Church Hill, at some point, I taught it. Every high school, every middle school,
right.
every elementary school.
Because she knew.
So you were the Johnny Payton
Yes.
of Church Hill.
Yes.
They got all the kids started on the song Fuchs and Beyond.
Yes.
Okay.
By then we were using the recorder.
You
I started
recorded,
from third grade on the recorder, and then fourth, fifth, they switched to band and string instruments. Now, at that time, I was one of the only people teaching band and strings because I grew up playing both. Most of them either taught strings or they taught band, but they kept making, they were like, well, you can do it. I was like,
but see, she only taught elementary at the time. So when I first got there, it was Nat Lee at Armstrong, Marsha, and myself. We covered Church Hill. See, Marsha did Bellevue and Chimborazo and George Mason, and then Nat did one or two, and I had Fairfield, Wickham, I had Woodville. Yeah. And I guess Nat had Whitcomb and not Mosby, but something else. Yeah. Then Charles Newton came in. Yes. And when Nat quit and said he couldn't take it no more, Newt took over. So we still had, and the beautiful thing about it is we had this thing called Bands on Parade every year. Yes. Where all the elementary bands would combine from Church Hill and play down at 6th Street Marketplace or the Dell or wherever. So Marsha was like our coordinator. Make sure that they dress and make sure that they know how to sit properly. She was telling us, she was schooling us on what we need to make sure these little elementary kids knew. And it was great having her there because she, most of us were thinking we were going to be high school, college band. And elementary was never
on their radar.
Yeah, how to cite me.
But our band directors made sure we could cite me.
Oh my God, Maurice was on top about that. Maurice Williams, oh yes, he was really, the whole time in Armstrong. Yeah, I did the marching band 1 year and led this big protest about how old uniforms were, and I refused to wear it again. And so I did concert band from that point on. But Maurice was really a stickler about reading.
But weren't you in the orchestra too?
The orchestra, yes.
Because you sat behind me.
I did concert band and orchestra. I said right there behind you. Yeah.
Yeah, I played viola.
Yeah.
And
I was in the orchestra as well.
Johnson played cello. So between you and Butch, you all always tuned my instrument because I was afraid I'd pop my strings.
Marsha was like a little sister to me, bro. Look.
Yep. My whole life I've been his little sister.
Oh yeah. Yes, awesome. Indeed. Yeah,
my mom and dad know him.
Oh yeah, and her brother is married to one of my sisters.
Right.
Full disclosure.
Full disclosure, yes. And they met in the band in high school.
At Armstrong or at Kennedy?
At Kennedy.
At Kennedy, right.
Kennedy. Yeah, just like my husband and I met in the band in high school.
I didn't know that Davey was in the band till I saw that picture on Facebook just yesterday. And it was some of the guys from the class of 69 in the band. It was a band reunion picture from 69.
Him and his buddies.
Right, him and his buddies. And I realized, I said, oh, Marsha knew David back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Since 10th grade.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, Marsha, we got one question. I don't know if we should. Well, let me ask you this question. One of the things we ask people who have joined us is to name your most memorable experience as a musician, whether it was traveling somewhere, who you met, who you played with. There's one thing that stands out in everybody's life as a musician, and all of us have been musicians for over 50 years, close to 60. Yeah, close to 60. And so what is it that stands out in your mind as a musician as the one thing that you'll never forget?
Touring Europe with the band.
Oh yeah.
That was
band was that?
absolutely
Virginia State's concert choir,
Virginia
a
State
concert band.
Now,
Band.
see, I went to Mary Washington first for 2 years, and majoring in music, but I had full scholarship, and that was my dad's idea. But I wanted to be a marching band director, so I needed to go to the school that had a marching band.
Right.
Washington was all girls. Okay. So I transferred to Virginia State my junior year, and that was the year we went to Europe. And I am so glad. I mean, that was the best move I ever made. I thought my dad was going to disown me because he really wanted me to go to Mary Washington. And I really wanted to go to Virginia State where all my friends were.
Right. But you know,
So tell us a little bit about the European tour. What is it that stood out?
Oh man, I tell you a couple of things I remember. I remember us playing in some public schools, right? And I remember in big concert halls. And it was interesting that we were a hit everywhere we went. And this is the way the people applauded, which I'll never forget. They didn't clap. They would take a piece, you can't see it, take a piece of paper and shake it. And that meant y'all were. And we'd be playing and you see all this white paper, you know, which were the programs.
Fluttering.
Fluttering because they really enjoyed us. And I just thought, I'm in Europe. I'm 20 years old and I'm in Europe. It was, and listen, my dad being my dad, right before we left, he came to school to bring me some money. And he had the car window open and he had put the envelope on the dashboard and it blew out the window. And he couldn't find it. So he ended up, I think he gave me like $20 to go to Europe for 18 days. But and my grandfather ended up giving me $100. And I toured Europe on 18 days with like $120.
But you know, that's got to be one solid memory for you, that experience. Music does that. We've all had that opportunity to travel and meet new people in interesting places as a result of music.
Mm-hmm. And I can tell you two other real quick ones. When I was active in the Virginia Education Association before I moved to Maryland, they used to have these big conventions every year. And one year I did the national, you know, they always have somebody sing the national anthem. Well, this guy had me play the national anthem on the stage of the Scope, unaccompanied by myself. And I remember being a little nervous and leaving out two measures because I refused to use music. I was going to remember it. And I left out two measures. I'll never forget that. And then also playing at the Hampton Coliseum where the jazz ladies, we opened the show for Najee for Hampton's homecoming one year.
Oh, that was nice.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
And I saw Najee like 2 years ago at Tin Pan Alley. And I got to talk to him because some guys I knew from Baltimore were playing with him. And I said, do you remember doing Hampton's homecoming in the mid 80s and this all girls band opened for you? He was like, yeah, I remember that. I said, I was the flute player. He's like, man, y'all were good. And so we're talking 30 some years ago.
Yeah, he's a nice guy too.
He's a nice guy. Yeah, very nice.
Thing that we like to discuss for a moment is the people who have passed on. We like to always mention a name or somebody that you know in music for over the years here. You know, y'all mentioned the gentleman with one of the band directors over there,
Ricks.
Yeah, he was a sax player. Mm-hmm.
So you know, people like Mr. Payton and Mr. Williams,
Tuscan Jasper.
Yeah, people like the touch your life that have been part of your music life.
Okay.
Who comes to mind?
Roy Singleton. He was my band teacher after Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams, I used to go to his house on Saturday mornings and take viola lessons because Mr. Williams was a viola player.
Yes.
You know that.
He's a string guy.
He was a string guy.
He's a string guy, yeah.
Go to his house on Saturday mornings, take the bus over the north side and take private lessons from him. But Mr. Williams, Mr. Payton, Mr. Monchaloff and Mr. Singleton. Those were the band directors that I worked with. Mr. Dave Williams taught at the elementary school I went to, but I didn't start until 7th grade back at George Mason, so I never had him as a teacher. He had, Glenroy was in, and I grew up together. He was in my class. He started Glenroy. And then Glenn had Mr.
You're the second person that mentioned to me George Mason having a 7th grade.
Oh my gosh, I had a big band. Yes.
Ron and Mr. Smith had mentioned that.
Was the first 7th graders ever played the Armstrong Walker game.
Yes.
When I was in 7th grade, we played at the Armstrong Walker Classic, and that was big deal.
So when did you go to East End, Marsha?
Yep.
What grade was East End? 8th and 9th?
8th and 9th.
Yeah.
But see, okay. Charles, didn't you go to Armstrong for 9th?
I went to East End in the 8th grade because I got to Armstrong in the 9th grade. That was the last year they had 9th grade.
Right.
So I got to Armstrong in 9th grade, but East End was my 8th grade school. George Mason was my 7th grade school.
7th grade school.
That must have been that baby boomer time when they had to adjust all of those schools because
the kids at Armstrong, you would not believe. The graduated class high school 6-7 was over 500 kids.
Oh yeah. You all had the biggest class.
Yeah, we had the biggest class.
Yeah, that was a baby boom thing.
Fantastic.
Well, that's good.
Well, Marsha, I know that you got another appointment, and I know we're approaching that time. I tell you how much we appreciate you being here and filling in these blanks for us and giving us some names and numbers to go with. You have had an interesting music career, my dear. Very proud to know you. Very proud to know you.
You helped raise me, so what the heck?
I thought we just met last week. Okay.
Yeah, right. Listen, he used to work at the Safeway.
Remember that? Yeah, I know. He told me.
Yeah, and that's where we shopped. So
was that the Safeway on 25th Street?
25th Street. It's a dialysis.
It ended up being something else after. What was the name of that store for years?
Community Food Market.
Oh, Community Pride, Community whatever.
Pride, yeah. Now it's a dialysis center.
Yeah, but I could see it was a Safeway. You could tell it was Safeway back then.
I was working with the distributive education program at Armstrong, and they got me the job at Safeway. When I was in the 10th grade.
Right.
Yeah. And so when I was in 10th grade, I started working at Safeway, and Marsha lived about 2 blocks around the corner.
Yep.
Right.
So her family would come in every week to shop.
Yep.
And and of course, and Dad was a super cool dude. Mm-hmm. So come here and look, Marsha be behind him, and and I'm yelling at her all the time. and of course, turn around, she's in the band with me. I go, said Armstrong.
I know you because you used to come in there with your daddy when you was a little girl.
Every week, I saw him every week. At least once a week, I would see him.
Right.
Let me tell you this real quick, Charles. I don't know if you remember this. When I first came back to Richmond to teach, because I taught in Nelson County first. When I came back to Richmond to teach, I wanted to make a video for recruitment. Remember, I came to your house and you and I made this. I don't know how we did it, but you narrated. I wrote the script and we introduced all the instruments to the kids. You don't remember that?
I'm sorry.
That's okay. You old.
Everybody, so I have no idea.
We're talking like 75, 74, 75.
75. Right. Yep.
Yeah.
And
Charles can't remember that far back.
I know he can't.
Yeah, that's true.
If it's not a saxophone.
I don't think I've ever said no to anybody that asked me to do things like that. And so as a result, I was always doing that, doing voiceover work, jingles, commercials. I was always doing that. And so, I don't recall this particular incident. And recording people was just something I did.
Marsha, I had to remind Charles that he is the person who recorded the first version of Love Injection.
Really?
Yeah, we hired him to do a demo, and the tape that he recorded is what got us our record deal.
Yeah,
and I remember it now because it was done upstairs.
They did it upstairs at the Ebony Island.
And I remember that. I remember that night. I remember that event. Right. I didn't recall it at the time when you first mentioned it to me. But like I said, I don't think
we recorded everything live, and we may have done overdubs, but he had a 4-track reel-to-reel recorder.
Right.
And we went up there and did all that stuff. And I had to remind him. I said, Charles, you know, you're the reason we got a record deal.
And that's what you used when we did this thing. You used a reel-to-reel.
Right.
And we used, and in fact, I just found it, the slide projector. We made slides. And
right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hey, what can I say?
75. That was 75.
I haven't learned how to do it right yet. I'm still doing editing. So I'm still learning. Still trying to learn how to get it right.
Well, Marsha, one of the things that Charles and I make sure that we understand, and you're right here in that with us because of our age, which is that we all are very blessed.
Yeah.
To still be doing
what
it is that we love so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we would just want all the young musicians that see this in the future and way down the line, probably when we're all gone, somebody will hopefully see these videos and just let them know that have a passion and a love for what it is that you do in music, and it'll last you your whole lifetime. Look at us.
Entire life.
Look at us. We're looking at 60 years of being musicians, basically, and just loving it, into our 70s. Because, like you said, a lot of kids start music at 10 years old.
Yeah.
And
I was 10.
You start music at 10 years old, and then you start, so we appreciate you coming on with us and giving us testimony to what it is that you do, and we know you got to go. So we're gonna say thank you very much on behalf of Let's Talk Music Richmond, and that guy over there, Charles, man, and of course you and I go way back, like a Cadillac seat.
Yep. So, remember your trumpet with
my Dizzy Gillespie trumpet.
The Dizzy Gillespie trumpet.
You let me use that trumpet in brass class.
And you let me use your flute in woodwind.
Woodwind class, yes.
That's right.
I remember when Marsha was playing the harp. I thought that was so cool.
Oh, yeah, I played the harp. Yeah.
So you played everything, right?
And then Jackie Pates left, and that new lady, Mary Smith, she wouldn't teach us. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That was just cool to watch us do all those things, Like, again, great to know you, Marsha. Great to know you.
Thank you.
There are a lot of young people out there today that play instruments because of you.
Yes, they do.
And the bass player in my band, I taught him in the 4th grade.
That's right.
And I could tell in the 4th grade that he was something special.
You'll be a great musician. And 2 of the trumpet players that'll be playing with me in the future, Charles, are kids that she put the horn in their hands for the very first time. And they're awesome musicians.
Yeah. My babies.
She used to make the little girls sit so politely. It taught me everything. They always have to have their little ankles crossed at the bottom, and the legs, the knees were touching, and they turned to the side, and they had the perfect little whatever. And I learned it. I said, oh yeah, I'm learning how to do this from her.
Yeah, Marsha's sharp. Marsha's sharp.
Take care, Marsha.
Love you both.
All righty.
Bye-bye.